Okay. Hello. Good morning. I was going to be on at 10 because it is Peyton's birthday extravaganza day. And then 10:15 became the new time because I had a client call in, a potential client, and he's a busy guy. So I thought I probably should talk to him. All right. So I'm just going to make sure I'm actually live.
You are.
Looks like it. All right. So announcements. Rachel is in Rapid City this week teaching project management classes. Oh, Skylar Massey. She's down there today and Thursday and Friday. They're doing guiding organizational change. And so that has a lot to do with our IX leadership and how do you help people through change. Shelly is just such a good human. Daylight savings time starts Sunday. It's almost spring. Don't forget to set your clocks whichever way you set them. Forward. I don't know. My phone just does it by itself now, so then I use that as the marker for my stove and everything else. Shelly and I are headed off to Cleveland is that next week already? Next week, the 11th through the 13th for the Northern Ohio Human Resources Conference in Cleveland, which is a SHRM event. There are over 400 people already signed up. I'll be speaking in one of the executive sessions about the number one toxin of teams, which is, as you all know, unspoken conversations. And Rachel and Cappy are headed out on the Abundance and Wealth Real Estate Cruise the 12th through the 18th. So that is going to be a lot of fun for them. Hopefully they don't contract the coronavirus because, everybody in the whole world's worried about that. I guess it's a thing. Susan, I just talked to Susan this morning, and Susan is actually in class with Rachel today. And then she is likely going to the WIC conference event tonight at the Civic Center, and WIC is Women in Construction. So we're really excited for that and for Rose Group to be supporting women in fields where they're mostly men. That makes life more fun, frankly, in my opinion, and it makes you feel like a badass. Sorry, I didn't swear. Okay, who is in Phoenix or Scottsdale? Shelly and I will be down there April 22nd through the 26th. Join us for the Smart Femme Conference. That's going to be lots of fun. And if you don't want to attend the Smart Femme Conference, then you should definitely hit us up for lunch or a glass of wine or a beer or a coffee or I don't know, a hike. No skydiving though. I've already done that once. That's not, I'm done with that, I think. Virginia people, Rachel will be in your neck of the woods for a Hero Club event April 19th through the 24th. She will be in Virginia Beach. Is that right where they are? I think Virginia Beach is the area she's going to be in. So if you're in Virginia, make sure you let Rachel know so that she can meet up with you for some sort of libation or chat or coffee. What?
It just says Virginia.
Norfolk. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a little bit north of Virginia Beach. I'm jealous. That is where my best friend in the whole world lives. And so Rachel's going to be there and I'm not, and I don't like that. But I am happy that Rachel gets to go see the Hero Club folks, and I'll miss out on that too. Okay. Weekly planner quote: stabilizers are the foundation of an organization, not only because they are the majority, but because they act as an anchor. That's on page 28. The weekly writing prompt in your journal. If you don't have a journal and you love journals, you should go on Amazon and buy one of ours because it has all this fun stuff in it. Weekly writing prompt is: write down 1 to 3 of your favorite quotes in your planner. Also, share them in the comments of today's episode. We can all use new inspiration and motivation. Reference as needed. So strangely enough, my favorite quote is a Dr. Seuss quote, and it is also Dr. Seuss week. So that is awesome. My favorite quote from Dr. Seuss, I have a couple, but my favorite one from Dr. Seuss is, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And I've lived very, very handsomely by that rule, probably to the chagrin of some. And guess what? I don't care. Okay. Today we're talking about empathy and accountability. So for a refresher, grab your book. I guess mine is over here. Read pages 156 through 163 and 179 through 202. Those pages again, just in case you're super interested in reading them, 156 through 163 and 179 through 202. So a lot of times people ask us what our magic is, like why does all the stuff that we've done really matter? How do culture types, how are they different from the other things that have come before us, like Myers-Briggs and DISC and Gallup Strengths Finders? And quite often the answer is our approach is what makes it different. So not only with culture type assessment, we're evaluating team dynamics and how all the people work together, not just individuals and their preferences, but why does the person who lives in this corner as a fixer really almost sometimes hate the way an organizer down in this corner sees the world and the way they operate. So it's not just that, but it's also really understanding where we are as a business culture, generally speaking. So a little history lesson, we've come from a place of basically the loyalist generation and before. It was all about thank you for giving me a job. I'm happy to be here doing this job. I will always do this job to the best of my abilities, and I plan to retire here. And oh, by the way, if I have a retirement plan from this place, that is going to be epic. And my wife, in that era, it was only my wife, will be really happy about that because she will stay home and raise our children, and that will be amazing. Now we're a long ways from that in a lot of different directions. We've kind of spiraled into lots of different, there are husbands being stay-at-home moms, and there are wives who are working, and there are husbands and wives and all different kinds of scenarios that we as leaders have to account for. And in all of those scenarios, it's it built in this sense of required understanding of other people's perspectives. We didn't used to need to think too much about that. One, because if I was the boss, I was the boss, but also two, because people quite often, at least socially, said that they saw the world the same way-ish as most other people. The one point of contention probably in those eras was religion. And otherwise it was pretty much, and that was just a matter of, which denomination you preferred, Protestant, Catholic, all those. So we have just a lot more going on in this day and age, a lot more things to process, a lot more things to be aware of as leaders. And that's why the thing that we include with the culture type assessment and the Kurtz change transition model is the last piece of the book, the third section, which is all about how do you marry empathy and accountability. So those kind of the bridging the gap between that the concepts that lived very well in the loyalist generation, maybe even through into the baby boomer and some of the Gen X generation, and the things with accountability. And then the stuff that's going on now where we really in the business world, you have to understand and be empathetic to other people's situations, perspectives, and where they're at with things. And really, probably all along, that was maybe the way that we should have done it. But I would say that the culture now has sort of forced us, if nothing else, into living and believing that. And so that's why we really talk about the best way to connect with people, not necessarily just on an individual basis, but also in a group, is to understand, be empathetic to what somebody is thinking, doing, why they're acting, how they're acting. And then also hold them accountable for their behaviors. So it's kind of almost hey, listen, we're all humans and I get that. Appreciate where you're at with that. And it's our responsibility to make sure this business is successful. And so I will hold you accountable for that. And so not only is it, I guess it's the concept of marrying those two things, but it's also the concept of separating those two things so that you don't get all your emotions wrapped up in the business of accountability, and you don't get all your accountability wrapped up in the business of emotions. All right, so here's some of the questions now that I've got that, my little diatribe out there. So what are some warning signs that my current leadership strategy has an unbalanced marriage of empathy and accountability? Well, I would say on the empathy side, if you go home at night kind of feeling yucky, like your people are walking all over you, or maybe there's just one person, or a couple of people, or a whole one department walking all over you, and you think that you you sort of think, gosh, I just can't get a word in edgewise, but I'm their leader or I'm their boss. What's up with that? That's a pretty good indicator that empathetically people are sort of taking advantage of you, or said in my words, you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. So that's a pretty good warning sign that that's happening. If other people walk up to you and say, you really shouldn't let Bill walk all over you like that. A lot of times we say, yeah, okay, whatever, thanks for the feedback, and then they walk away, and you think, you have no idea, this is just Bill and I's relationship, which might actually be true, because we do make concessions in our relationships about how we treat people and how we allow people to treat us. But always be thinking about that. And if Cappy has a saying, if one person tells you you have a tail, that person might be crazy. If two people tell you, you better turn around and look. And so if more than one person has said to you, gosh, Bill really bosses you around, that's weird, or why do you let him talk to you like that? Then probably you should do some internal reflection, maybe external reflection, and ask a trusted advisor within your organization some questions about your relationship with Bill, and do a little discovery phase with yourself to decide whether or not the behavior is appropriate or if you're just allowing it. Okay, so as far as accountability, if you have too much accountability, people say you're really rigid. Maybe your folks don't talk to you. Maybe you get some feedback about your organization that says, yeah, I don't know, we never see the management. That's a pretty good indicator. And that's one you can suss out pretty quickly. Maybe not by yourself. You can't just go, it's not likely you will just go to an employee and say, what do you hate about this place? And they're going to be honest with you. Although if they really don't like it, they will be honest with you. And it will be unfortunate, but it'll be the best bit of honesty you ever had, probably. So yeah, if you're hearing words like, it's really rigid here, we're too process driven, or if your turnover is really high, if you hear people saying, I don't, if they leave and if you do an exit interview, or you see a Facebook post, or if they put something on Glassdoor that says why they left, but they don't really say why, they just say, I don't know, I just didn't like it. Sometimes that can be indirectly related to maybe being too rigid or too much accountability. Now, having said that, you have to have accountability. Most organizations have too little, not too much. But sometimes and because of that, there's a lot of need for accountability. So I'm not saying if you get one bad Glassdoor review where people are like, well, they had a bunch of processes that I just didn't want to follow. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. You do have to have processes in place. You have to have policies. You have to help people understand, guide their actions and behavior within the organization. And maybe you have some safety policies and procedures, or confidentiality policies and procedures that are non-negotiable. So that is all good and fine. Sometimes it's just people's opinion that you're too squishy and nice or too hard and rigid. So you got to kind of think about, where it's coming from and why that person might be saying that, and get a few more sources of information before you just take one person's opinion about it. Okay. Oh, let's do this one next. Do different culture types face unique challenges when trying to marry accountability and empathy? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Yes, they do. So team-driven people a lot of times can be sucked into the vortex of empathy. I make it sound awful. It's not that bad. I'm just self-driven, so I just don't get it. But yeah, team-driven people really care about what other people are thinking and what they're doing and how they're feeling. And so, if Jane comes up and she says, "Oh, well," uh, I'll use Rachel as an example. I can't even put my name in the team-driven bucket, I don't think. Oh, Rachel, gosh, I really don't like these policies and they seem pretty miserable. Rachel would say probably something like, "Oh, well, I can appreciate that. Certainly give me your feedback. Tell me what you're thinking. Why do you think what you're thinking? Do you have another solution to propose?" Um, and she would definitely take that to heart and talk to the right people about, should we really have this policy in place? Is this the right thing to do? And even to the point, maybe for a team-driven person, sometimes where maybe it's a compliance issue and you have to do it. And if you're super team-driven, you might say, yeah, but is there a way around this piece of it? Because this, if people have to wear this face mask, it makes them very uncomfortable and causes a rash around their face. So is there any way we can get around this? Right? So sometimes team-driven people, I'll call it, their illogical blind spot is for the feelings of others, or discomfort of others. And how can I fix that? Or who do I talk to about fixing it? Because that's not okay. That's not okay in an organization. Self-driven people, their blind spot is exactly opposite. Most of the time, self-driven people are like, I don't have a rash on my face, so that sounds like your problem, Jane. And they look at the policy and say, the federal government requires us to wear these masks. It is a compliance issue, period. And a lot of times self-driven people get caught in the vortex of maybe not enough empathy and accountability to a point where you're being illogical about, well, the policy says. Yes, I know, Meg, the policy says, could we call the State Department of masks, whatever, and say, hey, are there different kinds of masks? Do you have some that are, don't cause allergies? Do you know what could be in this one that would be causing an allergy? Is there a way we can help this person? So a lot of times a self-driven person, it's not that they don't care about it, they just don't think about it. They're like, I don't know, wear the mask. What's the problem? So those are some traps that people can get caught in based on team-driven and self-driven. Order tolerant, I would say, if you're below the line in organizer buckets, a lot of the same as that self-driven example, because they're pretty black and white. The rules are the rules are the rules. Stabilizers really can be empathetic. Sometimes stabilizers can get themselves in a trap of even being, what's it called? Oh yeah, enabling bad behavior. Stabilizers a lot of times even if they're not allowing. So this is the thing to be thinking about. Even if you're not allowing the thing to happen that someone's asking for. So let's say Jane says, oh, these masks really hurt my face. We've called the State Department of Masks. We've done all of the things. There's no other solution. You have to wear this mask. It's for your safety and for compliance of the business, period. But if you allow Jane to keep coming to you, so let's say you're a stabilizer, because this is a lot of times for stabilizers, the illogical vortex they get caught in. You're Jane's supervisor and you're a stabilizer, and Jane keeps coming in and she keeps complaining. You've done your best to mitigate everything. You have engineered out all discomfort that you can, and it is what it is. And instead of stopping that conversation, you feel bad for Jane because there's not more you can do for her that makes her feel better. Then you keep listening to Jane, right? So you keep allowing her to, well, what I would consider whine about how uncomfortable she is. Now, if you're an independent and organizer like me, at some point you're going to say, Jane, listen, I understand you're uncomfortable. Perhaps if we can't change anything about this job and that mask, this may not be the job for you. A stabilizer will listen and listen and listen and listen. Oh, I know, Jane, I know. Oh, it can be awful. I know. That enabling behavior creates a culture of inconsistent treatment, because maybe there are 3 other people that do Jane's job that really hate the masks too and have a rash, but they're figuring out how to deal with it on their own. So be mindful about that if you're a stabilizer, that you're not enabling bad behavior, even if you're not allowing a rule to be broken, just by listening to somebody whine constantly and not saying, implementing a little bit of accountability into the conversation. It's not like you have to say, Jane, STFU, go do your job. But you can say, hey, Jane, I understand that you're uncomfortable. If you have another solution in mind, please bring it to me. But know that we've taken care of every aspect of the situation that we can. And maybe you need to start thinking about, the career that you've chosen or the job that you're doing. Are there other jobs we can offer you or whatever? And then fixers are team driven and fixery. And so a lot of times a fixer will enable some behavior because, again, team driven. So they like, hi Jessica, they like to please people. But the way that they might enable some behavior is by constantly fixing things for other people. And a way that it was explained to me one time in a therapy session, I thought this was super helpful, was if you imagine somebody's job as a ball on the floor that needs to be picked up. And every day their job is to pick up the ball 20 times a day. And they're not great at their job, maybe, or some aspect of it. Maybe they walk up to the ball, they look at it, they do all the right things. Maybe they squat correctly so they don't hurt their back and all the right things, but they don't pick up the ball. Or maybe they only pick up the ball 10 times a day. Or maybe they're late to picking up the ball. So you imagine their job as picking up the ball, and every time they don't do it correctly or exactly the way you want them to, you pick it up for them, right? So let's say Shelly's supposed to pick up a ball 20 times a day for us at work, and she misses the first 4 times because she shows up 2 hours late. That never happens. That might happen for me. That never happens for Shelly. This is why this is a great fake example. So maybe she misses the first 4 times she's supposed to pick up the ball every day because she's 2 hours late. And instead of saying, oh, well, Shelly should be picking up the ball and we're going to document this, I'm going to have a conversation with her about it, you just pick the ball up and you put it on the shelf where it goes and you pick it up and you do it 4 times every morning. So in a fixer's mind, you just want to move on to the next thing because you're chaos tolerant and you want to help your team. And so, I can pick up the ball. Of course I can pick up the ball. What that does is enable somebody else, though, to not do their job correctly. So you're kind of cutting back on your accountability in that sense. Okay, last question. How do I marry empathy and accountability in the workplace? This is a very abstract topic. With some good examples like the ball example and some other ways to think about it. But what I think the most important tip I can give you about how do I really manage marrying my empathy and accountability in the workplace is it's all about how you talk to people and what you say. You can say, I understand, and always follow that sentence up with, and we are responsible in this business for X. So when I was in HR, that was a great way to marry empathy and accountability. So let's say as an example, I had someone who, let's say Shelly didn't show up on time for work. And so when I sat down with Shelly, I knew that Shelly she was a single mom. She has a kid at home she's over here. She's kind of sweating a little bit now. I just said she's a single mom. She's a single mom. She has a kid at home. She doesn't have any family around. She doesn't have any help. She's working her buns off trying to, do her job and be a good mom and pay her mortgage and all things. I know all of this, right? But I also know that she's not doing her job because she's showing up late to work. Because let's say in the last 3 months, her kid's been sick a lot, right? So when I'm in that headspace, when I was an HR manager, I had to really think about how I communicated with that person. So I'd say, Shelly, I really understand that in your personal life, you've got you kind of juggling a lot of balls or spinning a lot of plates. And I know that you understand that as a business, we are also spinning a lot of plates, juggling a lot of balls. So we have to figure out a way for this to work for both parties. because we can't allow inconsistent and unfair treatment of employees. And also we have to be productive because otherwise we can't offer jobs. If we don't do a good job in our business, we can't even offer jobs to people because we won't be making any money. And so tell us a little bit about how we might be able to help you with your current situation, and we'll tell you what steps we're already going to take to sort of mitigate this issue from a business perspective. So like I said earlier, as much as it's about marrying empathy and accountability, it's also about separating those two things so you don't get all those crummy emotions mixed in with how am I going to hold people business accountable for their work. So I could talk for hours on this, but I'm not going to because we're already at 25 minutes. But that's the best tip I can give you is think about the way words come out of your mouth. Think about the statements that you use, and how do you kind of marry your emotions with the accountability that has to happen in the business without forsaking either one of those things, keeping them separate, but making sure that people know that you care about them. It can kind of be a tricky business. Good news for you is we do this for a living, and we would be happy to help you anytime. So if you have any more questions, give me a buzz. Send us a message on the Facebooks or wherever else, because apparently Shelly makes sure we're always active on social media. Okay, now don't forget to put in the comments your favorite quote, and also don't forget to put it in your planner. Can't wait to see you next week. Will it be me? No, it will be Rachel. It will be me. I will be with you. Huh? Oh, it's Rachel next week. We are scattered, as they say in the ranch world, from hell to breakfast for the next month and a half. And so you will see me sometimes, you will see Rachel sometimes. I think there might be twice or three times in the next couple months where we'll actually be together. But next week it will be Rachel. Shelly and I will be traveling to Ohio. So enjoy the beautiful weather if you are in the western hills of South Dakota or somewhere near us, because it's really pretty right now. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Lead powerfully, change the world. Bye for now.